Hello authors, I'm Joanne Morrell, children's and young adult fiction writer and author of short non-fiction for authors. Thanks for joining me for the Hybrid Author podcast, sharing interviews from industry professionals to help you forge a career as a hybrid author, both independently and traditionally publishing your books. You can get the show notes for each episode and sign up for your free author pass over at the Hybrid Author website to discover your writing process, get tips on how to publish productively, and get comfortable promoting your books at www.hybridauthor.com.au. Let's crack on with the episode. Hello, authors! I hope you're all keeping well in whatever part of the world you reside and listen to the podcast in. Today's interview is with Mila Maxwell on Finding Lady Baltimore, Family, Resilience and Weaving Narratives. And we chat how her love of the outdoors and French Acadian heritage shaped both the setting and the emotional tone of Finding Lady Baltimore, the inspiration and conversations hoped to spark from her novel, exploring the complexities of growing up alongside a sibling with disabilities, how Mila's background as a volunteer firefighter and active community member real-life experiences found their way into her characters and storytelling, what Mila's publishing adventure looks like so far, and her advice to writers balancing deeply personal themes with universal resonance, and much more. So in my author adventure this week, I have been taking stock, kind of sat down and reviewed my life, really. And for the first time in nearly 4.5 years, I'm taking a break from the Hybrid Author podcast in September for the whole month of September. I'm not doing any interviewing. I'm not going to release any new episodes. I'm taking a break. And this has just come about because I've been feeling extremely overwhelmed with things that are happening in my personal life, family. There's things to do with other things, which I'm not going to go into on the podcast because it's personal. But trying to juggle that on top of this business and working at Sellers and just doing lots of different things. I'm feeling a bit burnt out, to be honest, trying to do everything. It's made me realize that I need to reassess my goals. As you've probably heard in the last couple of episodes or even in the last couple of months, I'm a writer who's not writing how I want to be writing. I'm sort of picking up projects, I'm putting them down, I'm starting something, I'm not finishing. It's driving me nuts. I'm very aware that the end of the year is fast approaching like a tsunami, and I really need to just have a break from the podcast because it takes a lot of time, effort, and it's something I love. I do love it, but it's getting to a point where if the whole purpose for this in the beginning was the writing, and you might be thinking, oh, well, why can't you just make time for the writing? It just is not working out for me that way. So something needs to give, and so I'm hoping to take September as a bit of rest, clear my mind, clear everything that's on my plate, well, just clear a bit of the load anyway, and look, just see how I feel about that. And yeah, but I just wanted to say, it's okay to look at your life both creative and personally and decide what's working and what isn't, what needs to change for a bit to achieve what you want, whether that be rest, retreat, or ramp up certain aspects of your business. Absolutely is okay to pivot in any time. My whole author career has taken different dives from, to publishing, to genres that I write in, all sorts of things, to the way that this podcast is run each year, different. You just evolve. You evolve with experience and your life as it is now and as it needs to be. And I don't have any guilt at all about this. In fact, I can't believe that I haven't probably taken a break sooner. And just because of the way that the podcast is structured this year, it's not like it was last year where I'm batching episodes and things. It's sort of on a first come, first serve basis because I am charging guests when they come on. So that effectively for me puts the control back to them because they're paying for a service. They are paying for when they want their episodes to come out. So I'm kind of working towards other people, and I don't mind that, but it is a bit more, I feel like it takes a bit more energy from me to do it this manner. So for the month of September, you can enjoy the backlist, and the Hybrid Author podcast will be back in October with an amazing lineup of guests. So stay tuned. Thorn Creative, where beautiful websites for authors are brought to life. No matter what stage you're at with your writing, Your stories deserve a dedicated space to shine. Whether you're just starting out or have a bookshelf full of bestsellers, your website is the hub of your author business, binding everything you and your books offer together. Thorn Creative can nurture all aspects of redesigning your old site or start afresh from the initial design. They can provide ongoing hosting and maintenance to marketing your books online, saving you time, money, and stress trying to wrangle your site yourself. An author website built by Thorn Creative can easily direct readers to your favorite retailers, your publisher, or simply set you up to sell to them direct. The options are endless. Thorn Creative have worked with many authors across all genres and know what goes into good, functional working author websites to sell books. Head on over to thorncreative.com.au/websites for authors to read author and publisher testimonials and to see what they offer and some of the sites they've created. Mila Maxwell is an author from Clare, Nova Scotia, Canada, with a deep-rooted passion for storytelling and a love of the outdoors. A proud French Acadian, Mila draws inspiration from both her cultural heritage and her adventurous lifestyle, which includes being a volunteer firefighter. She lives in Sussex, New Brunswick, Canada, with her husband Jeremy, son Bennett, and 2 French Bulldogs. When not writing, you can find Mila out in nature, at the gym, or helping others through her work in the community. Welcome to the Hybrid Author Podcast, Mila.
Thanks for having me.
We're as honoured and thrilled for you to join us. We'll just start at the beginning of how you came to be a writer.
I think I always liked writing. I found it easier to express myself through writing. And I didn't really consider myself a big writer until my mom, who tends to save everything, she had found some things in the closet from when I was a child, just little letters and assignments that we had as kids in my class. So yeah, I ended up doing a major in journalism. And while that's a bit different writing than what the book was, I've always found it better. I've always found it easier to express myself through writing as opposed to speaking. So it came somewhat natural to me.
Natural from there. Fantastic. Yeah, I can concur with that. I was the same, especially. And were you a big reader as a child?
Not such as a child. I think when I was about 13, 14, I remember picking up this book. It was an autobiography of this doctor who was out in Antarctica. I think it was called Icebound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was very interested in. She ended up finding out she had breast cancer while she was there, and actually, with the help of her team back home, performed like a biopsy on herself. And that I think that was the book that really got me into reading, aside from like reading Goosebumps. I was a teenager or younger, but
I have to laugh now because the books from my childhood they're all back my dad's graphic novels, and my children are reading them now, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, Goosebumps as well.
It's great. They're timeless.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, today we're talking about your book, Finding Lady Baltimore. You know, it's set against a rugged, untamed coastline. Can you tell us a bit about the work and how your love of the outdoors and your French Acadian heritage shape the setting and the emotional tone of the story?
Yeah, I think there is ruggedness, but there's also a softness to the coastline. And where I grew up, I was very close to the beach, so we would spend a lot of time there. And I felt like rules didn't apply. I felt like we could just be free when we were there. So it just kind of took the severity or the seriousness out of our life and made it more, you could be a kid when you went to the beach. So, I mean, if you're getting really metaphorical and symbolic, you can have ruggedness with the softness. And I think that comes through in the book as well. And being French Acadian, that had to weave in because I grew up French Acadian, my parents, their parents, it goes down the line. In 1755, we were all deported from our land, and then we came back. So there's a certain resilience in our culture too that I really had shine through the book as well, through my protagonist Morgan's character, who is very much based on me. So yeah, I think I did an okay job at weaving those things throughout the book in a hopefully eloquent and imaginative way.
No, that's fantastic. And what categories, like what genre do you put the book in?
That was a really hard one. When I was writing it, I always thought it would fit into young adult because I wrote it from my 17-year-old's perspective. And then it really surprised me how many people that were not in that category that read it and really resonated with it. So my father's friends who are in their maybe 50s, 60s, and older, they read it. Males read it and could relate to my father's character, to their, because they might have daughters that they could see them, see in the book. So it's a very wide-reaching genre and a very wide-reaching theme or themes because it touches on so many different things. There's a bit of mystery, there's self-discovery, there's coming of age, there's suspense, there's a lot of different things. So I think I've been told with the book that it's been a book that people would not necessarily have picked up had they not known me as the author, but it has helped them branch out into different genres that they may not have normally picked up.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that. And you've probably had a lot of good word of mouth then, haven't you? Like, it does,
Yeah, it was, I think I did an okay job at building it up before the launch. And I used to own a business here in town. So I got to know a lot of people over the years, not being from here. It was very far reaching. I was very surprised how many people showed up to the launch. I think there were close to 100 people.
Wow. Amazing.
It was amazing. So yeah, the word of mouth has been fantastic. And I try to put it out there as much as I can and speak about the themes and the things behind the book and the reason that I wrote it. I try to get that out there and get these conversations going.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Well, the novel explores complexities of growing up alongside a sibling with disabilities, a theme which I haven't heard so much in fiction myself personally. But so what inspired you to take on this subject and what conversations do you hope to pursue with the book?
The relationship between my sister Sarah and I was what really brought this on. And it was never something like, it wasn't something that, I don't know, 10 years ago I said, oh, I'm going to write a book when I'm close to 40 or later in my 30s. It was never something that I aspired to do. It was something that I always thought, oh, it's really neat how people can write books, like good for them. So yeah, it was just something. I had a conversation with my mother about my sister, that how I sometimes didn't feel good enough around her. I felt that I put too much pressure on myself to be someone for her. So after we had that conversation, I was going to bed one night and I just got this sentence in my head, and it was basically something along the lines of, what if something happened to me that allowed me to see my sister's life? Like if I could see her life through her eyes. So I said, that will be tricky to write as a memoir because I have to have some sort of creativity, imagination. So that's where the fiction element came into play because I tried writing memoir. It felt very flat. I had a really hard time connecting different events that actually had happened and keeping the flow of the plot going. So I did choose to write fiction. And once I decided that, I hit the ground running. Yeah, it was easy. Within 6 or 7 months, it was done and ready to go.
Oh, amazing. And can you tell us, is it older sister, younger sister, and what's the disability?
Yeah, so she is 18 months younger and she has cerebral palsy.
Yep.
So she has some mental challenges as well as physical challenges, but she's living life to the fullest. She's on her own now. She lives in a special care home. Yep, where it's staffed 24/7. But yeah, she lives a very, very fulfilling life.
Yeah, no, that's great. And did she have any hand in the book, or did you share anything with her or with your family, your mom?
Yeah, Sarah it's hard for us to have deep conversations just because of her disability. And I like to think that she understands more than people may give her credit for. But she was never a person that I went to while I was writing this book for stories, for advice or anything like that. And that was a big reason that I chose to write fiction, so that I had seen things, I had noticed things growing up, things that may have been challenging for her, maybe accessibility things for her that were not always there. So I said, this is going to be great because I'll be able to write fiction and really weave a lot of my personal and our family's personal story within the book, but bring those subjects and those themes and those maybe challenges to light where I wouldn't have been able to otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And since putting the book out, have you had Anybody from these, communities, or anybody that's had same experience as yourself reaching out or action something? Yeah.
Yeah, it would really surprise me. I met with a couple of women that actually grew up with siblings with disabilities and said that they told me that they felt like this book was written for them. They could see
Oh,
themselves in the
yeah.
character, which was it was very heartwarming because I think you mentioned that it's not a theme that you hear of often.
No.
And I mean, I didn't really talk about it much growing up. I struggled with it a lot. And I just never saw myself in these characters. I interviewed a lady a couple years ago just to help me create my sister's character. She has, I believe, cerebral palsy. It doesn't affect her mind at all,
Mm,
but she's almost trapped in her body.
yes.
So she was very helpful in giving her perspective as well, because she said, whenever I read books or whenever I watch movies, I don't see myself in those characters either. Well, it was really to give my character, myself, a voice, being someone that grows up in this
Absolutely, yeah.
dynamic, but also it gave me the chance to talk to my parents, and we were able to discuss the things that they went through. Because I mean, I lived it, but I was also a child and a
Mhm.
teenager. So I think until you become a parent yourself, you don't realize, you're like, oh my gosh, like they did do the best they could, and they
Yeah.
tried. And yes, it was challenging. It's challenging, I think, to raise a neurotypical child, but then
Yes.
have a child with extra needs that are not always easily met in society, or in a society that's not built for them. So, yeah, I really felt for my parents, and it was it allowed us to break down some of the walls, I think, that I'm going to speak for myself, that I had put up, whether it was survival, whether it was trying to protect myself from feeling too much. But yeah, it really allowed us to talk openly about some things. And especially, I noticed a difference in the relationship between my dad and I. I feel like
Wow.
there's a lot more openness and a lot more calmness around our relationship now when we're together.
Well, that's amazing. And so definitely writing it has provided you with catharsis, I suppose, and your
Oh,
family.
for sure. Yeah, it was a very, very healing experience.
That's so amazing. I love that. I get a lot of that from my own writing as well. It feels like just a release of what you want to say, or sometimes just even expressing, realizing what your feelings are. And yeah, I can see you having lots of important conversations. It sounds like you have already. So no, that's amazing. So your background, a very busy lady, mother, volunteer firefighter, active community member. It shows a strong commitment to resilience and service. So how has these real life experiences, has any of them found their way into characters and your storytelling as well? Obviously, you've drawn upon your family history and things, but is there a firefighter in there?
There is. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like firefighting runs in my family. I have two uncles on both sides of my family that are firefighters. I have a cousin. So it was really funny because, yes, Morgan's character, the protagonist in the book, is very, very much me. And I was at a meeting, I think this time last year. I hadn't written, maybe it was a bit longer. It was probably a year and a half ago. And I was at a meeting at the fire station, and one of my fellow firefighters, who I've known for a very long time, said, am I in the book? Is there a fire scene in the book? Which people were so funny that everyone was like, am I in the book? Am I in the book? And it was very, very late in the book writing process. Like, I was pretty much done. And one of my editors was like, you don't have a climax yet. So, gosh. And some days I would write and nothing would transpire. And other days I had zero ideas and I would just sit, and it's almost as if the scenes would write themselves. And I wrote a fire scene. And well, there you go, Scott. There's a fire scene for you. So yeah, I was able to just give light to a lot of my family members and their actual characters, but in a more fictionalized light, which was amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. I bet everybody reading it was like, yeah. No, I get that as well with the process. Sometimes there's a lot that comes out, and it's a fickle thing, isn't it? The writing process.
Yeah,
Different each
like
day to the next.
well, yeah, I would sit here. I had a process, or I had a routine. Every morning, my son would leave around 10 to 8 in the morning, and I would try and write until at least noon. And yeah, some days I would sit and just stare at a blinking cursor. And I said, oh my gosh, what am I going to write today? And where should I go? And my editors were fantastic. I worked with this company out of Ontario. There were two editors that instead of having a full manuscript that I sent to them, I worked with them along the way. So if I wrote a chapter or two, they were able to critique it and edit it and then say, okay, based on what you've written here, maybe try this. Or I was able to kind of brainstorm with them along the way, which is so helpful because as I'm sure, writing a book can be a very solitary process. So that was a very, very good decision on my part to hire them, because there was also a writing group within that. So we were able to bounce ideas off other writers at similar stages in the writing process. But yeah, it was an interesting process. And yeah, other times I would sit here and I had 0 ideas, and 2 hours later I had 10 pages and I had a whole chapter, and I said, there's a scene. It was
Wow.
amazing.
That is amazing. And I haven't heard of that before, actually. People creating that way, especially editors. I thought you had to have like the full whack for them to be able to give the overall view. So that's really cool.
Yeah, they were amazing. And it was something that really drew me to their program, because I really stressed out with, I tried this on my own for at least 1.5 years. And I would go this direction and that direction. And I would say, no, like it just doesn't feel right. And I was so anxious about it to say, am I going to spend all this time and all this energy and put all this effort into a book that ends up being garbage? It's the fear that I did. And especially like I would try to, there's the pantsers and the plotters. And I tried to be a little bit of a mixture of both, where I had some sort of an outline, but I also just let the story evolve on its own. But yeah, it was a very neat process because it gave me that comfort to say, okay, I am on the right track. What I'm writing is somewhat good. And yeah, it was great to have that support and that coaching along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And even just to hash it out with other people, talk about it each step along the way, that would even unblock a lot, I reckon, for sure.
Especially peeling back those layers. Like a lot of times we'll have these stories that we think, oh, no one wants to hear that, or no one is going to read that. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story that can relate. It might not relate to everyone, but it can relate to the people that are meant to hear it. And I think once you do start talking about it and sort of planning, the layers that might have come to build over time get peeled back. And then there's often a beautiful story just hidden within or behind those layers.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then when you put it out there and you actually connect with other people, I think that's the real magic as well. So yeah, for sure. No, that's great. Well, as a Canadian author, navigating both personal and cultural identity in your work, what's the publishing adventure been like? We've talked about the writing process. And do you have advice for other writers who are balancing personal themes and things they've maybe gone through with universal rhythm?
Yeah, the publishing, there's a few ways of going about it. There's the traditional publishing where you would send a query letter and you might get rejected. Most likely you would get rejected, and you just have to keep going and going and going. And your book might not be published for years. And I knew very early on that was not for me. And it's not because I feared rejection. And it might be something that I pursue down the road where I do get it traditionally published. But I knew that I had a story to tell. I knew that it had to come out sooner rather than later. And I just felt that the self-publishing route was going to be my direction. And I took a program. It was called selfpublishing.com. And it was great because they coached me along the way. So they didn't just do everything for me. They told me what they were doing. So they basically said, if ever there's a second or a third and so on, a follow-up book, then you know what to do. You know how to lay it out, what programs to use. You know the process on uploading to Amazon and things like that. So I'm really glad that I did go that route. And I do have a background in marketing and PR and all those things. So I feel like a lot of the things that a traditional publishing house would do for me, I'm able to do myself.
Yeah.
But it's still not the same as being a traditionally published author, because they do get a lot of coverage, they get a lot more traction, they get a lot more say. But now that I am an indie author, I try my best. I'm still going to read what I want to read, but if it's a toss-up between someone that's an indie published book versus a traditionally published book, I'm like, you know what? The traditionally published book that I'm gonna give this indie author their book a chance and try to get them.
That's great.
I appreciate that on my end too.
And is there a big community in Canada for indie authors and things like that?
I'm not sure on that. I think it's becoming more and more prominent.
Mm.
I've been noticing like the bigger bookstores. I don't know what you have in Australia, but that's where you are, right? Australia?
Yeah, Perth, yeah.
Yeah. So we have what's called Chapters, Indigo, and Cold, which is a massive bookstore chain, similar, I think, to Barnes and Nobles in the States. They have been nothing but fantastic. I went to them a few months ago, shortly after the book was published, and they were like, yeah, sure, like it looks great. Your cover's fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a little business package for them, and they have been great. Their commission person at each location has been fantastic. I have had a harder time getting into the smaller scale bookstores. It's
Right.
almost like they're not huge on indie author books. I don't know if they don't think, and this is just my experience. I'm not
No.
saying anything negative, just saying that's how I find it is. Like I'll email these stores and people don't get back to me, and I'm like, well, it's not for that at this time, I guess. But I feel like if anyone's listening, that you might be missing out on some really good storytelling if you just stick to the traditionally published books.
Yeah, that's it. Wow. Yeah, I haven't actually approached any big stores, but like from my experience here, I feel like it's the reverse. Like we've got like indie bookstores that are popping up for specific genres that want to support like self-published people. Like there seems to be a lot more of that, and I just would assume that the bigger chains are a bit more anti self-publishing, but it's definitely more of an accepted avenue these days. And I think that the issues that we're all up against now for the next publishing phase is the AI generative market stuff that we're in and what that's going to shape. I think, it seems like traditional hybrid and self-publishing is now the norm, and then we've got this next thing, so that's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that, with bookshelf and space. So yeah. Well, you've had such a career, Mila, and do you have any other final advice you want to offer to writers about anything at all?
Just, if anyone's listening that's never written a book or is thinking like my story or whatever I have to say is not important, I would dare you to challenge that opinion. And even if you just write the book for yourself and you never get it published, it might surprise you. And there's ways out there to get your book if you do decide to publish it. There's ways to get it out there. Like we talked about, you can query some traditional publishing houses that they may reject you, but you just keep trying a different one. And if traditional publishing is not in your wheelhouse and you want to get your book out, there's many, many ways to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, it's a hustle, isn't it? That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time and expertise, Mila. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. And I know our listeners are dying to know, where can they find Lady Baltimore and everything, you do on and offline?
Yeah, she's on Amazon. So I'm pretty sure I checked Australia and it is on your Amazon as well. It's available in paperback and hardcover. But the paperback seems to be doing a lot better, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited if you're an ebook kind of person. So
amazing. Yeah. Any audiobook in the future?
Yes, I downloaded a program, and I think once school starts and my son is out of the house a bit more, I'm setting up a little recording studio downstairs. I've ordered my egg carton mount on the wall, and I bought a mic. So that'll be September. I think I'll start with the audio book and hopefully have it out by Christmas.
Oh, amazing. And good on you for doing it yourself. That's fantastic. Love it. That's great. Well, thanks again, Mila.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
So there you have it, folks. The sensational Mila Maxwell. Next time on the Hybrid Author Podcast, kicking off October 2nd, we have Cameron Sutter from Plotter, chatting from idea to book Bible in minutes and visual story planning. Cameron Sutter is a YA sci-fi fantasy author, software developer, and the inventor of Plotter, the popular visual planning software for books and stories of all kinds. An avid reader who is endlessly learning how things work, his life's mission is to help writers write more powerful stories and to encourage everyone else to read the classics. He lives in Oklahoma City with his wife, 6 kids, and several furry friends. I wish you well in your author adventure for the month of September. That's it from me. Bye for now. That's the end for now, authors. I hope you are further forward in your author adventure after listening, and I hope you'll listen next time. Remember to head on over to the Hybrid Author website at www.hybridauthor.com.au to get your free author pass. It's bye for now.